everyone, and welcome to the first of our video tutorials on the judiciary. In this video tutorial, we'll be looking at the importance of judges generally, the role of judges in civil and criminal trials, and outlining the different types of judges that we have. When speaking of judges as a group, they're referred to as the judiciary, hence the topic name. And there are many different levels of judges. We have inferior judges, superior judges, but their basic function is the same. Their main role, whichever type of law they're dealing with, is to make decisions in respect of disputes. And they must do this in a fair, unbiased way, applying the law and the legal rules of England and Wales. We start looking at the role of judges in the different trials that we have. I wanted to just start by emphasising the importance and the significance of the judiciary to our English legal system. The role that judges play is incredibly important because each day they are striving to ensure the fair, impartial and independent administration of justice so that every citizen is treated with respect, dignity, fairness, and receives a fair trial in the application of our laws. Judges have a significant impact on our daily lives, and we entrust them to make some of the more important decisions that affect us. If you think about the case from 2018, Miller and the Prime Minister, the decision that Boris was acting unlawfully when he prorogued Parliament, that was a massively important decision. So the decisions that they're making can affect and do affect all of us. And judges are affecting our daily lives because they are granting divorces, confirming adoptions, ordering the termination of parental rights. They can sentence people to life in prison. So the judges are there to protect our liberties and our most fundamental and important rights. So they are massively important. I've put some key points on this slide for you that relate to the importance of the judiciary, that they actually create law through judicial precedent. Now, judges aren't supposed to make law because, remember, separation of powers, the judiciary is separate from the legislature. But in reality, if you think back to the topic of precedent, we've seen that judges do actually create law through the decisions that they make, such as the case of R&R, where a judge decided that marital rape was to be a crime. I've mentioned just a minute ago that the independence of the judiciary is fundamentally important to all of us and the application of the rule of law. And we saw that in that case, Miller and the Prime Minister. We saw there that it was so important that the judiciary is independent from the other arms of state and can make these important decisions that are affecting everybody, that are going to protect our fundamental rights. They also play a key role in controlling the exercise of power by the state through judicial review and also through the Human Rights Act. And remember that judges have to interpret all of our domestic legislation in accordance with the European Convention on Human Rights. And if they think our domestic law conflicts, they will make a declaration of incompatibility. So now that we've seen how important judges are generally, let's take a closer look at the role of judges in our criminal cases. So the role in criminal cases then, judges might be involved in pre-trial matters such as bail, so deciding whether somebody gets bail if perhaps the police have refused. They are responsible for all matters of law and making sure that rules of procedure are properly applied. So in a criminal trial, we say that judges are master of the law, juries are master of the facts. So judges are making sure that the case is the correct procedures being followed, and they will advise juries accordingly. And they are familiar with the details of the case. They will select, swear in, and sum up all of the evidence to the jury. And that's a really important point, that they have to summarise and make clear exactly what the role is of the jury before they make that important verdict. They control the way the case is conducted throughout, And if a jury finds the defendant guilty, the judge is going to sentence the defendant. If the jury find them not guilty, then it's the judge's role to free the accused. Compare that then to the role of judges in civil cases, and remember that civil cases are very different to criminal trials. I always think of Judge Judy when I think of these cases. And in a civil case, the judge plays an active role in managing them. And remember, from the Wolf reforms, judges are now heavily involved in case management, and they encourage the parties to cooperate and settle. We actually want parties to avoid going to civil court. And in order to do that, they'll encourage the use of ADR, and we know that already that that's alternative dispute resolution. Sometimes the parties agree all of the facts before the trial, and so sometimes the judge doesn't hear any live evidence and can just make a judgment based on the facts. In other cases, written and live evidence will be given by the parties to the judge, and you'll see if you picture Judge Judy or Judge Rinder, you'll have seen the judges cross-examining the witnesses to try and establish the facts. In a civil case, the judge will deliver a judgment, but remember, they don't normally involve punishment. What the judge will do here is decide the amount of damages, i.e. compensation, that's going to be awarded. And they can also award injunctions and costs. So now we've looked at the importance and the key role of judges, let's have a look at the hierarchy of the judiciary. And you can see here from this diagram, we have a very large number of different types of justices, with the Lord Chief Justice at the top and magistrates at the very bottom here. And all of these different judges can be separated into two categories, superior and inferior judges. And we've got superior at the top, coming all the way down to inferior at the bottom. So we've got a list here of our superior judges with Lord Chief Justice at the top. He is head of the judiciary. We've got the justices of the Supreme Court here. Brenda Hale used to be our president of the Supreme Court. It's now Lord Reed. Master of the Rolls is president of the Court of Appeal Civil. We've got Lord and Lady Justices of Appeal. They are our Court of Appeal judges. And we've got High Court judges here as well. And our inferior judges in the lower courts, we've got circuit judges who sit in the Crown Court and the County Court, recorders who are part-time judges in the Crown or County, and we've got district judges who will sit in the Magistrates Court or the County Court. Have a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the different types of judges, and we're going to start with the superior and work our way down to the inferior. So at the top of the hierarchy for judges, we've got the Lord Chief Justice, and this handsome chappie here is our current Lord Chief Justice, the Right Honourable Lord Burnet of Malden. And he is head of the Judiciary of England and Wales and the President of the Courts of England and Wales. And under the Constitutional Reform Act 2005, the Lord Chief Justice has some key responsibilities, and primarily he's responsible for representing the views of the Judiciary of England and Wales to Parliament and the government, the welfare training and guidance of the Judiciary of England and Wales, the deployment of judges and allocation of work in courts in England and Wales. And he'll also sit on important criminal, civil and family cases and give judgments and lay down practice directions in many of the most important appeal cases. He also shares responsibility with the Lord Chancellor for the Office of Judicial Complaints, which is the body which investigates complaints made against judges. He's also president of the Sentencing Council, which we saw in our sentencing topic, is the independent body set up to support greater consistency in sentencing. So we've then got justices of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, and these are the judges of the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the UK in civil and criminal matters. And the judges are appointed by the Queen on the advice of the Prime Minister. And we know that this court hears appeals on arguable points of law of general public importance. And on average, it only hears between 50 and 60 cases a year. And we have 12 Supreme Court justices, and they will sit on a case in an uneven panel. We saw in the case Miller and the Prime Minister that we had 9 justices sat on that case. The previous president of the Supreme Court was the wonderful Brenda Hale, but our current president is Lord Reid here. So we've then got Master of the Rolls, and the Master of the Rolls is a judge of the Court of Appeal and is the president of its civil division, and he's responsible for the deployment and organisation of the work of the judges of the civil division, as well as presiding in one of its courts. And he normally sits with 2 Lords Justices of Appeal, and there's occasionally a third member, such as a retired Lord Justice. And the most complex cases traditionally come before the Master of the Rolls. The Master of the Rolls is second in judicial importance to the Lord Chief Justice, and he's consulted on matters such as the civil justice system and rights of order. We move on to the Lord Justices of Appeal. These are judges that sit in the Court of Appeal, and we know that the Court of Appeal has 2 divisions, the civil division headed by the Master of the Rolls and the criminal division headed by the Lord Chief Justice. As they are sitting in an appellate court, all of their work is concerned with appeals, so they don't hear first instance cases, they are only hearing important civil and criminal appeals. They will usually sit as a panel of 3, can be up to 5. This is a picture of Lord Denning, who was a Lord Justice of Appeal for many years. The High Court judges then, they are currently appointed to deal with the more complex and difficult cases. High Court judges usually sit in London, but they also travel to major court centres around the country as well as sitting in London, and they try serious criminal cases, important civil cases, and they also assist the Lord Justices of the appeal courts. And they will be assigned to one of the 3 divisions of the High Court, the QBD, Queen's Bench Division, Family Division or Chancery Division. On to circuit judges then. Some circuit judges deal specifically with criminal or civil cases, while some are authorised to hear public and or private law family cases. Others sit more or less on a full-time basis in specialised civil jurisdictions, such as in chancery cases, or as judges of the Technology and Construction Court. Some circuit judges may be asked by the Lord Chief Justice to sit in the criminal division of the Court of Appeal. There are currently over 600 circuit judges throughout England and Wales, and circuit judges are appointed to one of 7 regions or circuits of England and Wales, and they sit in the Crown and County courts within their particular region. But recorders then, recordership's often the first step on the judicial ladder to appointment to the circuit bench. Recorders may sit in both the Crown and County courts, but most start by sitting in the Crown Court. And their jurisdiction's broadly similar to that of a circuit judge, but they'll generally handle less complex or serious matters coming before the court. They're also required to manage cases actively, as well as determine claims at trial. And recorders are expected to sit for 30 days a year. Look at our last type of judge then, a district judge. District judges in magistrates' courts will hear criminal cases, youth cases, and also some civil proceedings in magistrates' courts. And they can be authorised to hear cases in the family court. District judges usually hear cases alone. By virtue of their office, they are also known as justices of the peace. And we know from our previous topic of lay people that sometimes we have a panel of 3 lay magistrates sitting instead of a district judge to decide our cases. So in our next video tutorial, we'll be looking at the qualifications of judges and also judicial independence.